Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 322, DMARC and Cybersecurity Toolkit. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call. Remote support that is easy for you and your customers to use. This is a must-have tool with features like on-demand for your break-fix customers and unattended for managed services. You can do automatic repairs with the auto repair built-in software, and it will save you time and money when you're supporting your customers. Check it out for a free trial at instanthousecall.com. Use the offer code PODNUTS. And by BusyBench, the all-in-one management tool simplifying IT for computer repair businesses with a clean and simple interface. Spend more time running your business instead of learning your management software. For a free 14-day trial, just go to busybench.com, use the offer code PODNUTS for 30% off the life of your account. And also by Untangle, next generation firewall. The best solution for bringing powerful network security to your clients in an easy to manage and cost-effective package. Untangle's partnership program helps repair shops add cybersecurity to their services and get up and running quickly. Get started today at untangle.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Mike Wise from Clockwork Networks. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Jeff. Excited to be here.
Awesome to have you. It's been a long time.
Good to be back.
Good to have you. And we also have a special guest, Shehzad Mirza from Global Cyber Alliance. Shehzad, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys? Glad to be here.
Awesome to have you. Appreciate you taking time out of your wonderful Sunday afternoon and hanging out with us. All right. So we're going to start off and we're going to do our tips and stories section. Mike, I'm going to kick it off to you. And what do you got for us this week?
Tips and stories. Okay. I apologize. I'm looking through my notes right now. And we just went over a couple of these. Of course. Okay. There's a new feature that it's not new, but it's new to G Suite, and they've rolled out scheduled send. And you may notice in your at gmail.com, but it's also been rolling out to the G Suite, business G Suite. And as a business owner, this has been really cool where I get emails, it feels like 24/7. And if I don't respond right away, it's on my mind. And if I do respond right away, I feel I'm setting a precedence that I'm kind of on the hook to have these email correspondences after hours. So I love it. Schedule send. If it's on my mind, I can go ahead and compose the email after hours if I wish to. And then I schedule it to send, say, first thing Monday morning, that kind of thing. So schedule send. I'm glad they finally incorporated that into G Suite. Another tip is kind of launching off of your tip from a few weeks ago. I think you've had a few tips of these, Jeff, having to do with being more productive, getting things off your to-do list. What I started doing in that vein is, because I can be very forgetful and I have things on my mind and I don't really have a great way of checking these things off, and some things can hit the floor. What I've been doing, and this has been very helpful for me and hopefully maybe for some others, is in the evenings, I find at the end of the day, I may know what it is that I didn't do or things were on my mind, but I don't have the energy to really put it in my calendar to schedule these things. I just need to brain dump. That's all I have the energy for. And that's exactly what I do. In the evenings, I just brain dump everything I can, things I didn't do, things I need to do, things I wish I'd done, this kind of thing. And then in the mornings, when I bring up my calendar and I'm looking at my day, I go to that list. And that is when I can copy paste things into my calendar. And that, for some reason, in the mornings, I have that different type of energy to insert that 15-minute call, or all these maybe errands, this kind of stuff. And I'm able, and I've been really successful, at least doing this for the past couple months. So another thing with this, as I've learned, is to categorize the types of things that I put on my calendar, and not just categorize, but prioritize. So I'll prioritize things. Number one priority is going to be for my health. If I have that doctor appointment or need to exercise or this kind of stuff, I prioritize that first. That goes earliest in the day. Second thing, family and home. If the car needs an oil change or whatever, that is what I'm going to put on the calendar next. Third priority is business development. Right now, my business is in the stage where I need to be bumping on all cylinders, and to get there, business development is my third priority. And then last, my fourth priority is the business itself, clients. And that way, I'm sure that if at the end of the day, I didn't get to absolutely everything, I knocked out, hopefully, my top priorities first. I hope that helps someone. You know what? I have a third one. I'm going to save it for next time.
Okay. Sounds good. And
Yeah.
you're bringing the goods just like you're taking John's spot. That's awesome.
Yeah. You think so?
You brought a bucket load of great information. And yes, and we've talked about different things of how to basically take your tasks and things that need to be done. And there's many different ways to do it. And what Mike alluded to, but didn't quite say, is that you have to find something that works for you. There's many different methods out there. Find one that works, stick with that. But you got to try these things. Not trying them, you never know whether it works or not. So get out there and take the information that has been given over the last few weeks when it comes to getting things done and see what works for you. All right, Shehzad, do you have something that you'd like to share with us this week?
Yeah, no, I did come up with a few things, or one thing at least, is so a lot of people, when they're on their mobile phones, right, you are surfing the internet. In most cases, you're out and about, you're surfing the internet, and there's no real actual, item to actually protect that or make it like a safe browsing type capability. I mean, in most cases, you do have you can download like some sort of antivirus, but then you have to pay premium in order to get the safe browsing tool or anything like that. There are free tools out there as well, and they most recently came out. So the two that I'm going to mention is one is called Cloudflare. They have an app you can download, and then the other one is called Quad9 Connect. So the two free apps you can download on your phone. You just turn them on once you download them, and it enables safe browsing. So this way, any domains you're visiting or anything that could be considered malicious or bad would get blocked. So those are two free tools you can download. I'm pretty sure Cloudflare has both an app in the iPhone and the Android, but I know Quad9 Connect only is for Android, and soon to be on iPhone.
Gotcha. It's on the most important platform first. Oh,
yeah.
Just kidding. Don't put out the torches. Come on. It's okay. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great, because a lot of times I would think that our number one device that we're on consistently is probably one of the most dangerous ways that we have to get compromised, especially being out and about, tapping into Wi-Fi signals and all that. And I would always suggest that I would prefer using your wireless phone service versus any type of Wi-Fi anywheres other than your own secured networks.
Most definitely. And then if you use any one of those two apps, it helps make you more secure pretty much on any type of network.
That's awesome.
So it's at least one step, one way to get there.
Very cool. All right, so mine's going to be a little bit of story. So we talked a few weeks ago about me upgrading my network and moving from the 300 series Arachnus gear to the 310 series. And so I bought a 310 router and a 310 PoE switch, power over Ethernet, for those that don't know. And that basically means you can plug a powered source like my VoIP phone or voice over IP. Voice over internet protocol, to be exact. But you can plug a phone in. I can plug in my wireless access point, and I don't need to plug any separate piece of electrical gear to plug right into the wall. The nice thing about this is I got rid of I think 3 switches in this office, and I ran everything. Now here's where you need to take the rule where you measure 14 times and only cut once. No, I didn't really cut anything. I was ordering some cables from Arachnus. I don't know what I was thinking. I did my measurements down the wall from where my gear is in my closet, across the room, across the other side of the room, and across the other side of the room. And I thought, no problem. We'll get, 25-foot cables will work for that. No, I don't know what I was thinking or doing that night, but whatever it was pretty messed up because I was nowhere even close. And then I ordered 5 25-foot cables, which didn't do me a bit of good. And I also ordered 5 15-foot cables, which I thought, I can take right from the closet, get right to this desk, which is maybe 5.5 feet away. No, because apparently when you're going down the wall, across it, up the wall again, I was just way off. So anyways, I ended up using the 25-foot cables, which was probably even still a little bit long, but I was able to bind them up and everything and got them to my desk area, plugged everything in. Everything worked perfectly fine. Then I had to order some 50-foot cables to get them all the way around. Well, I ran into a problem because when I was trying to neaten everything up and make it so that if I ever needed to replace the cable, it wasn't going to be that hard. Well, I was going around the room, but as you can see across me, there's several different places where I needed cables to the different devices over there. So they were all different lengths. Well, I was trying to bind all those things up, and I had a heck of a time. So I finally figured out a way. And basically what I did was I made them all the same length, bound them up every probably 3 or 4 feet with some Velcro. And then what I did was I came all the way past where I needed them and brought them back so that I had plenty of room where I could move things around. Not a big deal. But anyways, that was my cabling story. As far as the Arachnus gear, it was an easy setup. It was just as easy as the 300 series. I got everything in place, set the switch up. I went with a 116 port switch that I could run everything, and I filled up 10 of those ports and ran flawlessly, hooked right up, no big deal. The only other thing that I need to do, and I didn't have time to do it thus far, is that I need to replace my cable modem. I'm using one that I've had for a few years, and I'm using it through Comcast. So I've got to call Comcast, give them the MAC address of my new one, and get all that stuff hooked up, which I just never took the time to do so far. So, but everything else worked perfectly fine. And I sat down with John Dubinsky, and we talked about VLANs in the switch router access point, and he was able to, within a few minutes, actually set those up, help me set those up, and it was easy peasy. Set them up, separated my network, so all my clients are on one network, and then my home devices and things are on another network. And then I'm probably going to follow John Dubinsky's advice, and that is I'm probably going to set up a separate VLAN when I get back from my trip, and take some of those maybe not as safe devices, maybe like some TVs and things that I don't necessarily need to control on my network, that can be off on a separate VLAN that just need internet connectivity. And so, but yeah, the Arachnus gear, I love them. The GUI in the new Arachnus gear is awesome and easy to read, easy to understand, even for somebody like me. I was able to basically do what I needed to do in a short period of time. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually traveling. This goes into another segment. I'm actually traveling to Korea to watch my daughter get married here in a few days, and I'll be gone for a couple weeks. So with that being said, there is no show next week, which I believe is Memorial Day weekend. And there is no show the week after that. So we will be back on, and I should have wrote that date down, but it's actually the second Sunday in June. I think it's June 9th or something like that. So anyways, we'll be gone for a couple weeks just to let everybody know. So enjoy your hopefully warmer weather, unless you're in a place like Florida where it's already warm and it doesn't really matter. But enjoy time away with your family and all that kind of good stuff. But anyways, so the other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to set up a VPN, and I'm going to do that so that I can VPN into my network as I'm traveling abroad, just to kind of do what Shehzad talked about and kind of have that layer of safeness when I'm just out and about, not really knowing what's going to be in a foreign country. Not that there's going to be anything bad, but hey, better safe than sorry, right?
Hey, Jeff, congratulations to you and your family. And also, I'm excited to hear that the Arachnus is working well for you. I signed up with Snap AV, and I've been really pleased with their Wattbox product, and I'm looking forward to dabbling with the Arachnus as well.
Very cool. And the other thing, too, is I realized that I have over 40 devices in my home network connected. And you're like, there's a lot more things connected than you think. The other thing I ran into is trying to match up MAC addresses for things that they would say these generic terms of what the product was. And I'll give you an example. Texas Instruments, which is basically a chip manufacturer. And so there's a Texas Instruments chip in my Ford Escape. Well, there's also a Texas Instruments chip in my Yamaha receiver. So try to differentiate those two. So you got to sometimes, and I tried to look some of that stuff up. John gave me a couple tools to look at, and I still couldn't come up with anything better than the information that Arachnus was already giving me. So I basically had to go to all these devices, look up the MAC address, match them up, and then it only took about a week to organize and reserve all the spots on my network to have them open and available. So it was a fun project, and I learned a lot along the way, and I'm glad I got back in there because I only do that every few years. Usually when you have a device fail or something like that. And then the only other thing is make sure that you back those files up, which it just reminded me I need to do that after I've done all this work to set them up, and hopefully nothing happens between now and later today. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we will come back with our main topic. TechCon Unplugged, bringing the IT community together. Join like-minded business owners for a weekend packed with resources to help your IT business thrive. Hear from experts and get one-on-one time with peers facing the same challenges you are. Walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. September 20th through the 22nd, 2019 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to techconunplugged.com. Get your tickets and your hotel room today. We're actually opening this up to the public, so it's going to, we perceive that the tickets are probably going to go fairly fast, and we would hope that those that want to be involved in this is a great opportunity to get away from your business, get out of your business, get out of your own head, talk to some other like-minded individuals that are doing what you do on a regular basis, and be able to rub shoulders, shake hands, and talk shop, just talk about things that are going on in your business and get good information to help you in your business. You can go to techconunplugged.com today. All right, so our main topic, we're going to talk about DMARC, which I have no idea what that means, and a cybersecurity toolkit. And so Mike had brought Shehzad on and said, "Hey, I've been watching this guy's videos and checking out what he's doing, and I'm implementing some of his stuff, and it's really helping me." So, Mike, without going any further, go ahead and tell me basically how you found Shehzad, and then what interested you in watching his videos and getting the information that you were getting for your business.
Okay, first of all, Jeff, this is a fanboy moment for me to meet Shehzad in person. Hey, Shehzad. So because I'll tell you, this went back, this has been a 2018, 2019 issue where I've been getting clients that contact me panicked. They're panicked because they get an email that's addressed to themselves from themselves with directing them or suggesting that they've been hacked and they have compromising videos from their webcam. And this is really a spear phishing attempt. Spear phishing meaning directed at individuals to get money out of them, to extort them somehow. And there's two ways of approaching this type of situation when you don't exactly know what's going on. And the first way, the easy way, I'll say, is saying, "Oh, this is just some form of spam, ignore it." And the other way is to try to dig deep and educate yourself. Is there a product that can help with this, or something else? And the answer is something else. So the answer is email authentication and setting up your email that complies with email authentication standards. So I learned of this going to Google and YouTube, and sure enough, I came across Shehzad's YouTube channel through Global Cyber Alliance, and he has about 24 videos, many of them on DMARC, and this just snapped, made a lot of sense. This was what I needed to understand. So I'm like, this is great stuff. With these videos, I was able to dig deep, learn more. And I've been a practitioner, I'll say, of DMARC, SPF, DKIM, and we'll talk about these briefly, or at least explain the acronyms, Jeff. And as a practitioner, I don't profess to know everything, but I know what to do to help protect my clients and myself. And with that, I wanted to ask Shehzad if he'd come on the show, and from his perspective as being much more the expert, to help educate us all.
Very good. I'm glad you brought him. And Shehzad, so let's get a little bit of a background story about where you came from, basically how you got started in doing what you're doing now.
Sure. So giving a little bit of background, so going way back. So funnily enough, I was actually a biology major. And my whole idea was to go into like the doctor route and things like that, but that just didn't work out. I just didn't have fun with it. So, I decided to switch gears and went into IT. So, got my certifications and said, you know what, this isn't too bad. And, the training facility that I was going through the courses with said, you know what, you did your Microsoft certifications rather quick. Why don't you come teach other people? So I'm like, sure. I need a job. I need to get started. So let's go. So from there, it just built in. I got interested in it. I'm like, you know what? Security is really cool. And cybersecurity is something that I want to get into. So I went into joining Symantec. And then from Symantec, went to the Center for Internet Security, went to Ernst & Young. But now I'm at Global Cyber Alliance because, I wanted to do and join a group that was part of something that would do something for the greater good. Not necessarily something that's going to look for another sale, more money in this way, because, being a not-for-profit made me more interested into it. And we get to help people more on a global scale. So we're looking for anyone and everyone that looking, to make products and solutions for. So for the home user all the way up to like a government or a Fortune 500 company, whatever. Doesn't matter. So the products that we've developed and the solutions we come up with, it should be something that anyone and everyone can use. And during the time at GCA is where DMARC came up as from one of our partners that actually mentioned at one of our meetings and said, hey, since you guys are looking to go after phishing, DMARC makes sense. It's something you don't have to do, something you don't have to build, but it needs to get known, and people need to know what it's all about. So to stop with the acronym, and I'm not going to keep saying this over and over again. It's easier to say the acronym. So what DMARC stands for, it means domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. So obviously easier to say DMARC. But that's how I came about going into this whole, get into the cybersecurity realm and then getting into DMARC and learning about what it is and what it's all about. And hopefully taking what I know and share it with everyone out there, and have them know, like Mike did, learn it, and then show other people how to do it. Because I am only one person. So.
Well, that's true. It's nice to be able to get on a platform where, whether it be YouTube or other means, to get that message out there. So it sounds like you've had it. Yeah, I think a lot of people's backstories, it's usually they started off with one idea, and somehow I just fell into IT, and it's fun. So hearing those stories over and over again, it makes it cool that you can go, even a biology teacher can do it. A biology student. But because we've heard this mysterious thing of mail authentication and all this kind of stuff. What does DMARC do, and how does it protect us and our customers from these types of phishing attacks and other things?
Good. Yeah. So what DMARC is again, it's going to be one of those layers that you're going to implement and put in alongside with like your anti-phishing, anti-spam tools that you're going to have. This is going to help protect people from not using your actual domain name, right? Because you don't want people going out there and spamming and pretending to be you, as in whatever situation or whatever case it might be. Especially if you're a large organization, or if you're a government entity, or if you're like a healthcare provider or an insurance company, you don't want people, customers getting an email from you saying like, oh, hey, we're going to give you 50% off by using this coupon and code. And then they try to use it, it hurts reputation, and people then, in most cases, the organization has to honor it because they can't prove that it did not come from them. So you lose money that way in some most cases. The big thing with DMARC is the trust concept of it. The more and more you get into spam, becoming a part of a spam campaign or a phishing campaign, the issue you get to deal with is now, well, is this really a real organization? Is there a trustworthy organization, or is this just yet another spam that we're getting, another phishing type email that we're getting from this organization? Then eventually it leads to being on blacklists. Right, and you definitely don't want to be on a blacklist, because it is not easy to get off of blacklists, especially with all the blacklists that are around the globe. And then trying to fight Google and trying to fight Yahoo and get off of their blacklist is going to be hard too. And funnily enough, Google actually will say, well, if you want to get off of our blacklist, you actually have to implement DMARC and the other protocols that are associated with it. So it does help to get ahead of the game by doing this. Not necessarily, it's easy to start, but not necessarily easy to get through the whole process and finish the entire process. But that's where we can talk about some of those things a little bit later.
Okay. So when you look at, because obviously this stuff has been around for a long time, where people will take basically your domain name and they will attach some things to it, and it looks like it's coming, like Mike was alluding to earlier, it looks like it's coming from you as an actual person. I remember sitting in a hotel room, John Dubinsky, Paco LeBron, and myself, and Paco had this situation. I can't remember if it was his email or a customer's email, but John's like, oh yeah, this stuff happens all the time. So when we're talking about DMARC and the authenticating of our email, or the authenticating of the domain, where do we start? Where do we get started? How do we know what to do, and what's the direction that we need to take?
So Jeff, before, just one thing, because Shehzad said some very important things that I just want to foot stomp a little bit. And he talked about brand protection, and he talked about deliverability. And with brand protection is half of the scenario. That's the part that a lot of businesses don't see. They see when they see the spoofing, and this is what this is about, spoofing, pretending to be your domain. They see it when their business is being attacked or phished. They have no idea that with the ability to spoof yourdomain.com, they have the ability to reach out to the rest of the world with yourdomain.com, your clients, for example, the rest of the world. So who is using DMARC to protect themselves? Well, guess what? This is one of the things I noticed early on. The financial industry, the big banks are using it. PayPal is using it, and they're using it aggressively. They're using it to the extent where if there is email traffic that's going online that is purportedly from paypal.com, that email will get rejected and dropped. It will disappear unless it authenticates correctly back to the PayPal DNS records. So if it's good enough for these big players, and it is in use, and it's important enough to them, it's important enough for all of us. And with regards to the deliverability, you want to have that level of authentication with your business email, with your client's business email, so they don't fall into deliverability issues. So I just wanted to foot stomp how not only how widely used it is by in the financial industry, but also the how important that brand protection is, because that's an aspect that businesses don't have insight into.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing too, before we get on to that, the question you had. So just to make it clear that so Global Cyber Alliance aren't the creators and developers of DMARC. So these were basically like-minded organizations that got together and said, we're sick and tired of people spoofing our name and using our domain. So it was just to name a few, are like PayPal, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and LinkedIn were the major contributors to the creation of DMARC, because they're tired of it. I mean, in most cases, you tend to get emails from LinkedIn or you get emails from IRS that aren't actually from them.
Right.
So, and you notice that a lot of that has stopped because, well, they implemented DMARC. So you're not getting a lot of those spam messages as you used to in the past.
Well, and we're constantly, I mean, obviously the bad guys are always figuring out ways to do things. And so other people are having to come up with ways to combat these things. And this gives us another layer of security. And and I don't know that much about it, but it sounds like it's pretty straightforward to implement from the stories that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like everybody should be using this layer of security to protect themselves and their clients.
Yes, most definitely. And the thing is, and so in order to actually do DMARC and do the implementation of DMARC, you don't have to buy something in order to do this. So, but actually, let me take a step back. So with DMARC, there's actually two parts to it. One part is a policy. So they call it DMARC policy. And the DMARC policy is what you're actually creating and putting into place to actually protect your organization and prevent people from using your domain name. The second component is what they call DMARC verification. DMARC verification is where the recipient's going to have that part enabled on their end, so that way they check for DMARC policies on every incoming message that they receive from other organizations. So the DMARC policy would be the sending organization. DMARC verification would be the receiving organization or the recipient, because it could be Gmail users or Hotmail users on the verification side.
Oh no, you didn't just say Hotmail, did you?
Yeah, I know. I know. It's still one of the most popular ones out there.
I know, like Yahoo, or worse than that, AOL. I know.
They're still there.
Horrible.
But so now all you need as an organization is something that you already have, which is DNS. Right? You have DNS. Everybody has DNS, a domain name system. Everybody has it, because if you don't have one, then you're probably having a really hard time being on the internet. So you're actually creating a record in your DNS in order to implement and use DMARC. And it's a type of record is called TXT, or a text record that you're creating in there. And you're just really putting that in, you're giving it a name, and you're giving it a value. And in the value, you're going to define what level policy you want to implement on DMARC. So I'm not going to go into all the different tags, because there are various types of tags that are associated with when you're creating the policy. And there are different types of resources out there that will help you actually create the DMARC policy and create and learn what the actual records, what the tags in that record actually mean. So what you're actually inputting and what you're component, what you're placing in. Then just to plug in GCA, we have a setup guide. What it'll actually do is you put in your domain name, and it will check to see if you have DMARC or not. If it doesn't, you can go through a nice tutorial that will guide you through and teach you what DMARC is. It'll teach you what each of the tags mean, so that way you know why you're inputting that information in there. And then at the end, it gives you the result of this is what your DNS record should look like and what you actually have to put in. So that way it makes it nice and easy for people to do, rather than having to go out to different sources and looking to figure out, okay, what does this one mean? What does that one mean? Should I do this or should I not do that? Because really the only key component about when it comes to DMARC is to have that policy and have that record in place, and then learning what the different levels are and how to change those different levels. But overall, the nice thing is you as the organization, you have control over what happens with those messages, rather than having the receiving side make a decision like, okay, well, it looks like it's coming from the right location, but is it actually coming from the right location, or is it not coming from the right location? What do I need to do? What do I need to look for? They don't have to make that decision. And do I put in the spam? Do I drop it? What do I need to do?
And I think that too, that probably will help. I noticed probably within the last year or so, it seems like a lot of emails even from legitimate email addresses, for whatever reason, will get lost in a spam filter, or sometimes not even make it to the recipient, even though you don't even know about it, because people will be like, "Ah, no, I didn't get that email." And sometimes it's not legit, but sometimes it is.
Yeah. No, exactly. And those are the key things. Is like, you want to make sure, going back to what Mike said, that your emails get delivered. And this actually implementing DMARC, it increases deliverability by about 10 to 15%, or
Nice.
if not higher.
Okay.
I know marketing will love that. The marketing team, knowing that their email is actually going to get to where it's supposed to get to. So, but that's the first part of it. Is like, you have to have DNS, obviously, in order this works, and it's all DNS based. So all this is DNS based, except for the verification. The verification part, you have to have like an email security gateway or something like that you just put in a check mark, and now you're checking for incoming DMARC policies on messages.
So it's your domain registrar, whoever that is. You're basically, all you're doing is you're adding a text record with a certain amount of information, so that it will basically make it authenticate to make sure that that's coming from you.
Right.
Okay.
And that's going to define the policy. And then there are two other components that are involved as well. So not everything is built into DMARC. So the one part, like the authentication part, it actually uses two other protocols for authentication. So there's two other things that you actually have to have. One is called Sender Policy Framework, or SPF. And what SPF is basically, so it's not sunblock or anything like that. So in case anyone, it's actually a funny thing, because people actually Google SPF, and the first thing that comes up is sun protection. So you may actually want to Google for Sender Policy Framework to get the right thing. But what that does is it actually gives you this. That policy is also, again, it's in DNS, and that's going to define, hey, these are the servers and these are the domains that are allowed to send on my behalf, right? Because people will use like third-party like marketing tools, or customer relationship management type tools like Salesforce, or MailChimp, or Constant Contact. They'll use those to send emails, like to send out bulk emails, because it gives you like a nice marketing or like HTML type formatting of an email. That's where you're gonna, in that policy, you're gonna say, okay, here's the IPs, here's the domains. As long as it's on this list, they're allowed to send using my domain name. If it's not on the list, they're not allowed to send it.
That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and the nice thing is SPF you can actually use by itself. You don't have to use it with DMARC. But the problem is if you use SPF by itself, a couple of things. One, it doesn't really tell you what to do with a message if it fails, because that's where the receiving side, they have to make that decision. They have to decide, okay, well, if it's not on their list according to their policy, what do I do with that message? And in most cases, the recipient doesn't want to make that decision. They don't want to say like, okay, well, if it's not on the list, we're going to reject the message. So let's just put the check mark for rejecting, or put a check mark for put in their spam folder, because they don't know, right?
Right.
Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe because Google likes to change their IP addresses all the time and change the different systems that they have. It didn't happen to make the list, so maybe we made a mistake. So that becomes a problem. And then the other issue ends up being is like, if you are using a cloud service provider like Office 365 or Google G Suite, you don't want to use SPF by itself, because in the policy, you're actually saying to use all Google mail servers. And in Office 365, you're saying to use all of the, they use Outlook.com. So we use all the Outlook.com servers. Well, then what's to prevent anyone else who's using those same exact servers from using your domain name, and from you using their domain? There's nothing. So that's why SPF by itself isn't great. Then there's the second protocol that DMARC uses as well. It's called DKIM, which stands for Domain Keys something message. I keep forgetting what that I means.
Domain Keys Identified Mail.
Mail, thank you. What that does is that actually uses public private keys. And what that will do is it signs every message leaving that particular server for that domain. So kind of like if people have heard of like PGP, pretty good privacy, where you're signing messages as a user, you sign that email message, or you can use encrypted messages. But difference being that DKIM is for the entire domain. So that way you set up on your mail server, and every message that goes out through the mail server is digitally signed. So that way, you're not installing anything on users and stuff like that. So every message that is being digitally signed coming from that particular server or from that organization. So you would need to have DKIM implemented for everything. So if you use third-party vendors, you're gonna have to have a DKIM key for that particular vendor as well. So you can have multiple DKIM keys set up. And this is all, again, still DNS. You're still putting everything into DNS. You're not buying like a new type of software and installing something new on your system to do something like this. Unless, of course, you're a Microsoft user. In the Microsoft Exchange, you have to install the third-party tool to use DKIM, but it's not built in.
Okay.
Like most other systems are. But then you run into the same problem with DKIM. It's just signing the message. Then that's it. The recipient side will get them, if they have it turned on to check for those things, then they'll have to, again, make a decision. If the signature doesn't match, what to do with the message. If the signature does match, what to do with the message. So they still have to make that decision. But you can see how SPF and DKIM can work together, because with DKIM, if you're digitally signing everything, it's digitally signed for your domain. So if you're using a third-party provider and you have SPF and you have DKIM, everything is being signed. So that way they know additionally that this is coming from your domain. So if someone on a third-party provider tries to use your domain, there's no DKIM signature associated with it, it should fail.
So, Shehzad, real quick, let's talk about who this helps and who this doesn't. This won't help folks that do not have their own domain. For someone that's using email at gmail.com, at hotmail.com, at outlook.com, these knobs aren't available for them to turn. You need your own domain. So this is going to be strictly for those that are sending from yourdomain.com, first of all, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And when talking about using DKIM or SPF alone or together, what they're both missing is the reporting and the conformance of DMARC. Yeah. So that when that email is out there from yourdomain.com, with DKIM or SPF together or alone, you never know that.
Yeah,
as the sender, you never know that. And with regards to conformance, there's no direction for what that recipient should do, even if they fail the check. Should they make it disappear? Should they put it into spam? Should it be entirely up to them? So both the reporting and the conformance is missing from DKIM and or SPF.
Exactly. And that's where you as the organization, you create that policy, and now you tell the recipient what happens with the message. They don't have to make that decision anymore. You're now sitting there and saying, okay, well, look, if it's at this level and these checks fail, put it in the user's recipient folder, because maybe we're playing it safe, or just don't even send the message. Completely drop it. Don't even store it on your quarantine and just get rid of it, because it's not coming from where it's supposed to be coming from.
All right, I want to take a quick break, and then we'll come back into this. This is a fascinating topic. I'm looking at the simplicity of this, and I'm getting a lot of things in my head where I go, this is something that definitely needs to be done. And it seems like it's fairly simple to implement, and people should automatically be doing it anyways. But we're going to take a quick break, and our show today is brought to you by BusyBench. Remember when running your business was simple? No. BusyBench sure does. Wouldn't it be nice to quickly create a repair ticket, generate an invoice with a single click, and manage thousands of customers completely free of charge? Yeah, that'd be nice. BusyBench thinks you will enjoy adding an unlimited number of customers, invoices, estimates, and inventory items so much you might forget we have paid features too. But don't worry, when your business grows and you need things like SLA alerts, payment processing, and recurring subscriptions, BusyBench will be with you there every step of the way. Turn a ticket into an invoice with a single click. If you've added inventory items to a ticket, they will be added to the invoice as well. New invoicing module allows you to track when a customer opens an invoice and determines when it was viewed. You get those customers that go, hey, did you get my email with my invoice? What email? The one that you opened up 5 times. That one. Additionally, customers can pay that same invoice online, which makes it convenient and you get paid faster. Manage your assets with predefined metrics and customization options. Easily track everything from customer serial numbers to login passwords and device details from a single location. Receive daily digests recapping all of your activities, such as tickets created, invoices generated, and payments received. Go to busybench.com and start your free account today. When you decide to upgrade, use the offer code PODNUTS for 30% off the life of your account. Okay. So going back to the simplicity of doing this, obviously, Global Cyber Alliance is basically, it sounds like they're trying to get this message out to the masses. And it doesn't sound like there's really, am I hearing this right? There's really no cost involved other than labor, time.
Yeah, in terms of in terms of implementing the policy and putting it in place, there is really just it's a matter of taking time. I mean, if depending on the situation and depending on your organization, your cost would be the staff time, I guess. Though the thing that where it gets a little bit tougher is where Mike mentioned was the reporting component of it. And there might be a cost associated with the reporting side, depending on which avenue you decide to take. Because there are vendors out there that provide full-scale services when it comes to DMARC. They'll hold your hand. They'll tell you what you need to make changes to, what you need to do with SPF, DKIM, how to change the policy in DMARC. But I mean, if you can handle that portion of having control over DNS and doing the implementation, there are free tools that you can use for reporting that are out there that are freely available. GCA will actually show you a free tools, some of those tools and how to use some of those tools. We don't have a video on it because we want to try to stay vendor agnostic as best as we can. But if you were to reach out to me and ask like, hey, what are some of the tools? I'll show you the tools and show you some of the free tools and how to actually use those tools, because not everyone's going to necessarily understand what these reports are going to say, and what you're actually looking for the report, especially if you're a newbie to this. I mean, if you have some level of technical skills that are available, it's technical skills in terms of how email works and how domains actually work, then you may know what to pull out and maybe able to get at the understanding. But the nice thing about the reports is it's either pass or fail. And there's one other one called unalignment. But it's easy to say, okay, well, if it passed, then it's working. If it failed, okay, now I need to make a change or need to do something there, and that's where it can get a little bit dicey. For some folks, it's okay, I know I need to make a change here, but what exactly is that change? And GCA is, we're here to help. And it's free, right? Where you just reach out and say, hey, look, this is going on. I don't know what to do. If I have the answers, I'll say, okay, well, here's what we need to do. If I don't have the answer, I know a bunch of the DMARC gurus that are out there that know more about DMARC than I do, because they were part of the creators of it. I'll get with them, but I won't tell them who you are or who is asking those questions, because I don't want them coming back to that team and saying, okay, look, we can do this and this and this for you for an X amount. So we keep it anonymous if I have to pass it on.
Well, and it sounds like from that standpoint, you basically, if you're looking at reporting, figuring out whether it's working or not, and then figuring out which avenue you have to go, that's obviously good for the business owner, good for the people that are taking care of their clients. And maybe there is, it's the same reason people don't do their own taxes, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're going to pay somebody to do something for you that you don't want to learn, or you don't want to do it yourself. But I think if anybody's ever made a text record in their domain registrar, it's fairly simple to do. Yeah. Can you screw things up? Absolutely. We've all screwed up websites at one point or another, and I'm sure you can screw up your domain name too. But it's usually easily fixable. It's not really that complicated.
Right. Yeah, and the nice thing is about DMARC is they try to keep it relatively simple to use, so that they don't try to use like coding to say, okay, if you want to switch your policy level, put in code number 5XAC, or it's not hex or anything like that. They use simple terminology for the most part, right? Because the policy levels, there's 3 different policy levels. So it's called none, quarantine, and reject. And you use, those are the words. So you put in your policy, you put P equals and then none, P equals quarantine, and P equals reject. The hardest part about that is making sure you spelled quarantine correctly.
That would be hard.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's true. I admittedly, I made that mistake. I spelled quarantine the wrong way. I'm like, why isn't this doing anything? But the best part is if you do misspell it, it just doesn't work. That's all it does. It doesn't work. It won't stop mail from going or prevent anything from happening. It just stops working. Your mail flows normally and no issues without any problem. So that's where you have to take a look into an account into it. But if I could, I'd like to just explain what each of those policy levels are really quickly.
Yeah.
Because those are important. Because to get started, and this is best practice when it comes to DMARC, you start off with the lowest policy level, which is none. And that's basically what I like to call monitor only mode. Because what you're doing is you're just putting it in, but you're not actually doing anything to the messages. Your messages will flow like they normally would. But the nice thing is if you do this and you enable the reporting feature, you get all the reports and you can make all the fixes that you need to make before going to a higher level. So that's why you're not just jumping right into it, because I'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. The next level is quarantine. And quarantine we don't recommend going to quarantine, but quarantine is like a safety net, because that's where you're starting the enforcement. So this is where if it doesn't match the authentication mechanisms, or if it fails those other two mechanisms, the message goes to the recipient's spam or junk folder. And the real reason I don't recommend it is because if you haven't really set this up and you're not ready to do this, and you missed a good chunk of stuff, a good chunk of mail servers that actually you're using, or third-party vendors you're using, the last thing you want is having multiple messages going into your spam folder. Because eventually, at some point, the users will be like, all they do is ever send me junk. So especially when they actually get one in the inbox, like, well, 1 out of 10 made it to the inbox. The other 9 were in the spam folder. And they were actually legitimate messages. They could say, you know what, this is probably spam, let's just ignore it. So you don't want to take that risk. The best thing to do is go to the highest level, which is reject, because that basically means if it passes those mechanisms, it actually go to the inbox. If it doesn't pass, that message is completely dropped. It just goes out in limbo. I don't know if email purgatory or whatever exists. No one will ever see it again. Basically, that's the way it works. And that's why the reporting part is important, because the only way you'll ever know that something like that happened is from those reports. Because those reports will tell you that how many messages actually were, failed, and that way you can make the changes and do what you need to do. So it's important to know those, because a lot of people do put DMARC at none and just stop there. They don't go any higher. That you're not helping anyone. You're not helping yourself either by just doing that. You want to go to the highest level and get there as soon as and quickly as possible as you can. Don't jump to reject, because you most likely will break things unless you really know your environment well. Typically, I recommend going straight to reject if you're like a startup or a small business. Because there was a large financial institution that actually went straight to reject because their email staff and IT staff said, like, no, we know our email. We know what's going on. They went to reject, and lo and behold, they got a call from the CEO saying, none of my messages that I'm sending from the messages from the CEO are going to anyone. What's going on? And if they found out later that the CEO's office, the admin there, signed up for some like Constant Contact or some third marketing tool, because they wanted to bypass the rules for being able to send messages to thousands of users. So I think they had a restriction; you can only send to like 50 or 100 users using regular email. But no one told the IT staff or the email staff that that's actually happening. So, and the IT staff didn't bother looking at reports either, because they said, well, we know what we're doing. Lo and behold, they dropped back down to none, turned on the reporting features, learned everything they needed to learn, and they ended up finding a few other ones that were being used that they needed to add and update. And once they did that, they went back up to reject.
Wow. Okay.
So be very careful.
So there really aren't a lot of knobs to turn, and it's been a question I've had, and Shehzad, maybe you have an opinion. I have speculation. How come DMARC isn't more widespread and popular among small businesses or medium-sized businesses? What's your opinion on that?
Honestly, it's something. It's just hasn't been advertised. To be honest with you, once the developers created it, a lot of the what ended up coming out of it were vendors that decided to sell it in essence. So I think it became one of those things where, unless you knew about these vendors or you were within the right niche in cybersecurity, you would hear about it. Um, and that's the thing. It's like nobody actually spoke about it. Like with GCA back, when we first started and people mentioned DMARC, it was news to us as well. We're like, I mean, and then we played around with it, we used it, and we developed metrics around it, and we're like, why aren't people using this too? Like, just like you're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how would you not know about this? And when we talked to people, they like basically said that the approach to marketing just wasn't out there. And it became one of those things that, oh, here's another vendor trying to sell us this new thing that they're trying to sell. Well, when it's not actually something that you need to sell, it's something it's free to use. For the policy part, is free to use and implement, and you just have to go through the process and go through the steps. And that's where we're trying to push people to say, hey, look, tell people about this. It makes sense, and just use it. You don't have to necessarily buy something. You don't have to go to a vendor to implement DMARC. You have DNS. You have GoDaddy, you have network solutions. You can go in and do it right there. If you need guidance, hey, there's people out there to help guide you. And that's where it becomes a thing too, because people then, when they find out about it, the first thing they say is like, oh, well, it's email. And the whole CEO story is like, we don't want to break it, we don't want to take that risk. It's a low risk implementation, but it's a high value to the organization to have this in place.
Well, like you said before, though, if that domain gets blacklisted or something like that, then all of a sudden you've got nothing going out, nothing happening. So again, it's being proactive versus being reactive.
Exactly. And that's important for small businesses, especially because that's where they lose the money. Trying to do cybersecurity and then trying to go through the process of trying to figure out what it is, and next thing you know, their brains are in knots because they're like, okay, what is this? I don't even know what DNS is in some cases. The small business is just trying to start up their new, I don't know, like wellness center, or they're just their new accounting firm or tax firms. They want to, but security is not the thing that everyone's going to think about.
That's why they hire us.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mike, I want to ask you a question. So you started watching these videos, you started learning about DMARC, and I'm assuming you started implementing it out to your clients. How did that look, and what was the process you used to do that?
So the most important part of DMARC is, in my opinion, the reporting. That's it. That's huge. And that is why I speculate why it hasn't been more popular. The DMARC RFC it was dated 2015, relatively recently. So this specification is out there. What are the reporting tools, which is really the useful part of it, to assess its benefit? Prior to 2015, when it's just SPF and DKIM, we're shooting email in the blind, and we don't know what's being blocked or quarantined or whatever. I mean, never mind, there's none of these policies you can really enforce, but it's all in the blind. So now with DMARC, relatively recent, I believe the reporting tools are excellent right now. And I think that hasn't been something that a lot of us IT folks have realized. And on the GCA website, there's a 3 or so reporting vendors that you can sign up for free trials and kick the tires on the reporting. And this is the kind of stuff where you just set up the DMARC specification in monitor mode. And every day you get a report as to the types of traffic that the domain, your domain.com that you're monitoring, does it pass SPF or fail, or DKIM pass fail, this kind of stuff? And how does the network traffic flow? And just seeing a daily polished report that's highly configurable also. Again, not a lot of knobs. And really, it brings to light, guess what? We can go to a reject policy after we sort out what to do about the constant contact or the MailChimp that's being used to send email on our behalf on your domain.com to clients. Okay, we have to include them in SPF, or we have to include the public key for the DKIM authentication as a DNS record for them. This kind of stuff. So if the question was like, how do I, or what is the process that I used to get my clients on board, it was actually, I was a little bit bold at first and jumped to a reject policy earlier. Like Shehzad said, I don't see the point of getting my client's email winding up in someone's quarantine or spam. It's just going to lower their reputation. I mean, I'm not talking a digital reputation, just having all the email from so-and-so domain.com winding up in a spam folder. But so I quickly went to a reject policy, and actually, by and large, that was highly successful. And I did notice some stuff with MailChimp or Constant Contact was not getting through. And fortunately, not a huge deal, something you can react to quickly, and maybe dial it back to monitor only, and then you start incorporating the correct configuration to now embrace, say, a marketing effort that's sending email on your behalf, kind of giving them permission to spoof you, if you will. You want that email to go out on your behalf from them. So so it's the reporting tools that makes it so transparent as to what's happening and the success of it. And that's why I speculate that why it hasn't been that popular, because I believe these reporting tools have really found maturity in maybe the last year, couple years or so. And again, I use DMARC, and I trialed about the other 2 or 3 that were on the GCA site, and I personally like DMARC. That speaks to me. I easily am able to make sense of the daily reports that come in.
Very good. All right, let's go ahead and let's gather some our lasting thoughts around anything that, Shehzad, anything we haven't covered. We're going to take another quick break here, and we'll talk about anything that we haven't covered. And then we also have the cybersecurity toolkit to get into, which I want to hear about that. So our show today is brought to you by Ontangle Next Generation Firewall. Designed to provide your small to medium business customers with the easiest, most cost-effective solution for network security. Ontangle is the fastest way to add cybersecurity to your service offerings. We've taken enterprise-grade security and put it into a platform that makes it easy to get started, risk-free. There's no steep learning curve with Ontangle. Instead, you'll get a browser-based dashboard that lets you see the status of your managed networks at a glance. You'll enjoy on-the-box reporting included at no extra cost, plus customizable alerts that integrate easily with apps like PagerDuty and VictorOps. Make it simple to stay on top of any incidents that do occur. Ontangle NG Firewall not only protects your clients with gateway antivirus, spam blocking, and intrusion prevention, but also gives you control over traffic at the application level with web content filtering, app control, and full SSL inspection. You also get WAN optimization features like balancing, failover, and bandwidth control. Whether you need a VPN options or a captive portal for secure Wi-Fi, Ontangle NG Firewall has everything you want in a single solution. With lots of freebies like centralized management with zero-touch provisioning and a cloud threat intelligence scan for a second layer of defense included at no extra cost. There's no better choice than Ontangle for getting visibility into and control over network traffic, helping your clients safely connect to the internet for their business-critical applications. Visit ontangle.com/podnuts today to get a free no-obligation trial of NG Firewall and save 15% on any purchase with promo code PODNUTS. All right, so Shehzad, what things have we not touched on as far as the DMARC and anything that we might need to people might need to know out there?
Yeah. So one thing is that, I mean, when we've been talking about DMARC, we've mainly been talking about with email. In all honesty, my recommendation is if that you have a public domain, whether you're using it for email or not, you should have DMARC in place. Because what's to stop someone from using your domain from using it for email? even if it's not out there and you don't have like the G Suites or Office 365 set up, you can still implement DMARC and protect yourselves in that case. And then the other thing is like, don't be afraid of it. I mean, it is another three-letter acronym. It is cybersecurity, but there are people out there to guide you. Whether you come to GCA or you find some other groups that are out there that are talking about DMARC, reach out, ask the questions. Someone is going to be there to help you, and should be willing to help you to get through the process and get to where you need to get to. So don't be fearful of it, especially as a small business or any level of organization.
Well, it's one of those things that we always talk about, eating our own dog food. And obviously, if we're running IT businesses, you're going to have a domain name that you're running for your business. If you don't, go out and get one. They're inexpensive. It's probably one of the first things you should have to legitimize yourself in certain aspects. Put it on your own stuff. And I agree with you. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's not something I would have thought of, because I do have some domain names that maybe I don't use email for, and it just doesn't make any sense for that. But I can definitely see the benefits of having that on there, even if it's just tied to a website, or because basically you're protecting the domain name itself.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. And you're protecting your brand by doing it that way, because that's the case, right? Small businesses will have the domain, but then they'll use Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo.
Why?
For their business accounts, yeah. But those are the things you have to take into account. You still protect that domain regardless of what you need, regardless of whether you have it for email or not.
Mike, any thoughts that obviously you were the one who was very passionate and brought this subject, and I found it very fascinating. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to mention right now?
This is something as an MSP. If the MSP folks that are out there listening, this is a feature that you can bring to your clients and provide a lot of value to them. I was on a prospect call last week, fortunately closed it, and one of their big issues was what they just referred to it as spam. And I described what the spoofing is, and they're like, exactly, that's it. And I got their business in part because of what I was able to bring to them that was showing them, actually demonstrating them that their current domain does not have these authentication standards in place. And this issue is not going to go away until we fix it with implementing the authentication standards, step 1. And that was important to them. And so whether you find a way that this is going to get you clients, or you find a way to monetize what you can bring to them, this is all helping. So I have that.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you bringing him on board and letting us know about this and letting us know how you're implementing in your business, so that people are not fearful of that and are able to go out there and do that themselves. It's fairly simple, even if you have a bunch of domains,
Yeah.
because you have a bunch of different clients.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, because the other thing we want to talk about was the cybersecurity toolkit that obviously GCA came up with, and what does that entail, and what is it?
Sure. So just to give you a little background on it, because one of the things that we looked at was that there are a lot of things what people call our cybersecurity toolkits, and they actually end up being really more guidelines. You should have a strong email password, or you should have a strong password. You should do this, you should do that. But the thing is that for a lot of, especially with small businesses and some other organizations, what does that mean, right? I mean, what do I actually use to protect that and protect myself? I mean, they're telling me that I need to protect my computer. What do I need to do? What tools should I actually, what are the actual tool sets? Rather than just saying that, okay, I need to have some level of protection on my computer. So what we decided at GCA was to take some of these guidelines that are out there. In particular, the one we focused on was the Center for Internet Security's critical controls. And we took the top 7. And then alongside it, we took like the NIST guidelines. We took some guidelines from the UK government, from Australian government, and said, okay, these are the top 7 that make sense to us. And we generalized it. We categorized them into easy to understand things like know what you have, update your defenses, protect your brand, preventing phishing and viruses. We made those nice, easy to understand, because those are the buzzwords that people hear all the time. And then underneath each category, we said, all right, this is the actual tool. These are the companies, these are the vendors that actually provide these tools. So we're saying protect yourself against phishing and viruses. Okay, so antivirus tools. Here's a list of different free tools that are available out there that have been recommended, not by GCA, but by GCA's partners, some of our technical experts that we know of that are out there across the globe. They're the ones who gave us these tools and said, you need to add this tool to your list. You need to add this tool to your list. And our first cybersecurity toolkit is for small businesses. We do plan on making it for other ones as well, other different types like healthcare and so on. But small businesses were the ones that we decided are the ones that are in the most need to have something like this, because they need to know that these are the things you can use. These are the actual tool sets that are out there that you can go download and install on your systems. And the tools that we focused on are mainly free systems. So free antivirus, free anti-phishing tools. We scoured everyone. We talked about things. People said, vulnerability assessments. What tool do we use? I mean, and they look up like Qualys and Rapid7, and they're like, oh my God, this costs thousands of dollars. But guess what? Qualys actually has a community tool, which is free. But people don't know about that. Small businesses don't know about that, especially. So this is a free tool you can use. And we're still growing it. I mean, it's out there. You can go to the site. It's gcatoolkit.org. And you can go through and pick through the category, and it'll give you the exact tool set. We're actually going to be starting a feedback mechanism and a rating mechanism for each one of these tools as well. So that way, real users who actually use these tools can say, okay, this is a 4 out of 5. And this is what their thoughts are on those particular tools. So that way, again, it's not GCA saying or recommending that these are the tools you have to use or these are the tools you need to use. This is now real people saying, and small businesses hopefully responding back and saying, like, look, I actually use this tool and it actually helped me a lot. Or it could go the other way too. We do expect negatives. People can say, like, I use this tool instead of this tool because it was just better for me. So they could give 1 star to the other one tool, and then they could give 5 stars to the other tool because they thought it was better. And then this way, other people in the community, in the small business community, can understand, okay, this is the one that it seems to be the most popular, so maybe I should use this one as well. So we have different things like that. We have like Protect Your Brand, and we have DMARC actually under Protect Your Brand. DMARCian is under there as one of the tool sets, and there's another DMARC vendor because they provided free tools for depending on the size of your organization, the level of messages that you send out. Because the focus was free, because we know small businesses, they don't have a lot of money to spend. I mean, a lot of the money that they're spending is to build their business, to grow their business. A lot of the money the profits they probably generate probably go right back into the organization, so that way it can keep growing and keep building. So we wanted to go with free tool sets and things that are free, and we're continuously adding more and more tools to it. It's not just what's there is what you see. We're still talking to people. We're talking to vendors, and we say, look, it's great that you have this tool, but we know it costs thousands of dollars. Look, small businesses need something that's not going to cost them that. So, we're putting it out there, and a lot of companies are starting to see it and think along the same line. So we hope that toolkit is going to be something that will be very beneficial to small businesses, and they can use it. Again, it's free. You don't have to register for the site. We're not asking you to register to collect and say, who's doing what. You just go visit the site, pick what category you feel that you need the most help in, and then use that tool. Try out the tools. Like Mike said, he tried out a few vendors before he picked one that he actually liked. try a few. I mean, there's at least 4 or 5, maybe 7 different antiviruses that are on that list. See which one's the one that best fits your organization and try it out, and then provide feedback. That's the key thing. We want this to be a two-way process. We don't want it just to be GCA says this or this, they say that. We want real world people to say, this tool is actually really good or this tool is actually really bad. And if you are a small business that has tools that you're using that aren't on the list and they're free to use, let us know. We can talk to the vendors and say, okay, we want to get approval for your logo and add you to the list. And in most cases, they say yes. That's a free marketing for them. So they get what they need, and and then other small businesses can prosper from it too. Because who knows best, but then other small businesses.
That's great. That's awesome. That's good to hear, because a lot of times, I think a lot of people are learning nowadays, when you give stuff away for free and then you have an offering of something else for, as you grow your business and different things, that it's a win-win situation, because people will remember, oh yeah, you guys put this stuff together and you had this tool available. And I like too that you're like going, yeah, we don't necessarily know if this is all the greatest things. Obviously everybody has opinions, and everybody likes to use different things, and you got to use whatever's going to fit your business. But I think it's a great place to get a repository of information and tools that you can try out and use, so that you can go, oh, I didn't even know this thing existed. Like you said, you guys are going to bat and getting these tools out there so people know about them. Because in the IT industry, a lot of people have seen over the years that, man, there's a lot of vendors and people out there that we don't even know of.
Right.
So I like it.
Exactly. And we also, our next step is also to make sure that we make it a little bit easier to understand how to use some of these tools. Because not everybody may know, what does vulnerability scanning mean. It's like, okay, now we have a tool to use it, but what do we actually do with this tool? So we want to do those like little how-to guides and how-to videos to show, like, okay, this is what you're actually doing when you run it and what you need to do afterwards. So more videos coming along at some point.
Awesome. And we are going to have links for all of Shehzad's information and all stuff from GCA, so that you guys can go there and check out those links and get that information. We're going to let's gather our lasting thoughts before we get on out of here and take one more quick break. And if you are enjoying the information that we're sharing on this show, I would ask that you would go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast and support what we're doing here. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, and that's William Wallace. And no, I don't think it was the person from Braveheart, but hopefully we're getting some good information there. And what this also does is $1 a show, give up 1 coffee a month, and basically we'll get you into a super secret Facebook group that you can't search for and find on Facebook. We have to let you in. And it's a group of like-minded individuals, business owners from all over. And they're sharing information. They are being nice. They're helping each other out. And that's always been my goal. And that's why we bring also vendors on the show to show, the wares and different things that they have, so that we can all work together and, help each other. So that's why we do this. So I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. And all right, so let's, any lasting thoughts? Mike, I'm going to give it over to you. Any lasting thoughts on anything we've talked about today? Anything that you want to add that's burning that you need to get out before the end of the podcast?
Oh my God, Jeff, thank you. So on YouTube, the Global Cyber Alliance has a channel. Find those videos. Shehzad has videos that are specific to setting up DMARC for G Suite, as well as a DMARC for Office 365. And not only that, but he shows step-by-step how he updates these DNS records on GoDaddy. These are very specific examples and very common steps that you'll be facing. So I want to leave folks knowing that these videos are out there and they're excellent.
Very good. Thank you, sir. And Mike, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
Jeff, I'll be at TechCon Unplugged, September 20th through 22nd.
There you go. He's
And
also
Laura will be there too. So if you want to talk to somebody smart, Laura will be there.
they're a great couple, and I enjoyed talking to them at the last conference we attended together. So that was awesome. Shehzad, what any lasting thoughts on anything we talked on? Anything that we haven't covered?
Sure. So one thing just to mention it. So it being we at GCA we're going to do a DMARC boot camp. It's basically from beginning to end. We're going to talk about DMARC for about a month and a half, maybe longer than it should be, but we're going to give people time. But the plan is to start in September, and it will go into October, which is Cybersecurity Month. And the idea is to at least at minimum have all the participants have DMARC set up in the lowest level and understanding reports going through it. So we're going to go through each part. We're going to go through the authentication, implementation, the reports, and the conformance parts. We're going to talk all DMARC for a month and a half. So to learn more about it, just go to the Global Cyber Alliance website and sign up for our newsletter. Because that way you'll learn about other things that GCA is doing, and then we're going to most likely advertise it in the newsletter, or just follow us on social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just follow us, and we'll probably start advertising it around July, August, in terms of people can sign up, participate, and we'll guide you through the entire process.
Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate that. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they could do that?
The best way. So I won't be at that conference, but the best way is there's our email, gca-dmarc@globalcyberalliance.org, which I'll give to you so that we can provide it to folks. And you can even contact me on my personal email. I'm fine with that, which is smirza, M-I-R-Z-A, @globalcyberalliance.org. You could contact me about anything DMARC related, or if you have questions about the toolkit or any suggestions even, because we're always looking for suggestions on what things to add or next things to look into consider. So we're always open to those kinds of things.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here today and share with us, because I've learned a ton, and I have a lot of work to do now to even get my domains under control. so that I don't have these problems in the future. So it's been great. It's been a great learning experience, and I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and this was a lot of fun.
Very cool. We'd like to make it fun. We don't want to make it nerve-wracking. Just make it good, wholesome content where we can just kind of hang out, and just talk shop. All right. So if you want to, or you should, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. Get some questions in there. Sometimes we answer those right from the chat room. You can also send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com or leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000. And we actually do read emails on the air unless you tell us not to. And we will play voicemails on the air also unless you tell us not to. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.